Hello. Hi, yes, good morning, sir. Sir, so what is your name on this thing, sir? On Zoom ID? Sir, Madhumati Sanjay it is. Sir, that is actually your email ID is this thing. Okay, sir. Hello, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, Navneet.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning. One photograph with the videos on here.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and maybe Reddy may join in.
Okay, sir.
So you just have to be alert and let him in.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Whenever everybody is ready, I'll start.
Okay, sir.
Navneet,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I can hear a background here. Can you move to a quieter place?
Okay, sir. Sir, is it okay now?
Yeah, I mean background voice आ रहा था. Okay, no problem now.
Okay, so once.
Navneet, if all have come, shall we start?
Yes, sir. Sir, there are nearly 36 people right now, sir.
Yeah, it's okay. So they'll join in, no? Later, no problem.
Okay, sir.
Okay, can you hear me, everybody?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll start the class. Today I'll be just talking about periodontal disease pathogenesis. So pathogenesis actually is the disease progression of a state of normalcy to the pathology. So we'll discuss the pathogenesis of periodontal disease today. Okay. So the normal, before we start with pathogenesis, we have to see the normal physiology of the tissue. And then after learning about the normal physiology, you get into the pathology of the tissues. So normal gingiva is called pristine gingiva. Pristine, Pristine, pristine gingiva. That is a disease-free state. And from here, once the accumulation of bacteria, it proceeds to gingivitis. And if untreated, moves on to affecting the supporting structures of the teeth that results in periodontitis. So when you have taken a case history of the patient, you must have taken some few case histories. You come to the normal gingival uh, normal gingival state. In that you have the color, consistency, contour, and size. So what is the normal color, normal contour, normal size? First we learn about it and then go on to the disease state. Okay. So we start with the histopathology of periodontal disease, clinically healthy gingival tissues. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. Now, this is a very clear picture of the histological appearance of a healthy gingiva. As you can see, the D, which is called the attached gingiva, C to D is the free gingiva, B is the sulcular epithelium, and A to B is the junctional epithelium. This is the normal gingival sulcus and showing all the histological appearance of a healthy gingiva. If you can see under the outer epithelium, you can see some sawtooth retipex here in this epithelial region. And then you have the connective tissue, then the bone and the tooth. Okay. So this is the normal appearance of a healthy gingiva. Next slide, please. Yes. Now, this is a very important aspect, junctional epithelium. The bottom of the sulcus is non-keratinized and it forms the floor of the sulcus, forms the floor of the sulcus. So when you insert your probe, the tip of the probe will touch the beginning of the junctional epithelium, and it wraps around the tooth like a collar, and this surface cells are attached to the tooth via hemidesmosomes. So this is about the junctional epithelium. So when you insert a probe, your tip of the probe will touch the most coronal part of the junctional epithelium. Yeah. Next. Next, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Another important aspect is the sulcular
Excuse me,
epithelium.
sir.
This, if you notice,
Excuse
it
me,
is
sir.
stratified squamous. Sorry.
Excuse me, sir.
Stratified squamous non-keratinized and faces the tooth surface, but it is not attached to it. Not attachment, it's called the free gingiva. It can be moved with the periosteal elevator or with the probe, and it forms the soft tissue lining of the gingival sulcus or the periodontal pocket. What is the pocket? We'll be telling you in subsequent slides. So this is the normal. So you have the outer epithelium, the sulcular epithelium, the junctional epithelium in its normalcy, what we are showing you now. Okay, next slide. Yeah, this is the outer epithelium. What you see in the patient's, as soon as the patient opens his mouth, you will be seeing this outer gingival epithelium, which is stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, and it is continuous with the sulcular epithelium at the crest and forms the clinically visible gingiva, as I told you, and covers both the free and the attached gingiva. So this is called the outer gingival epithelium. It is stratified squamous. The sulcular epithelium, which is inside, is non-keratinized. Okay. Yeah, next, please. Okay, now, yes. Are you able to see the slide, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Yes. Now let us start off with gingivitis. You know, gingivitis and periodontitis are the only two inflammatory polymicrobial infections affecting the periodontium, that is the structure around the tooth. So let's start with gingivitis. It is caused by the gram-negative bacteria, which settle into the sulcus. And in the initial 2 to 4 days, immediately 2 to 4 days after the plaque has accumulated, this initial gingivitis starts. So within 2 to 4 days, the process of gingivitis is already started, and the cells which come into the area are the polymorphonuclear neutrophils. So whenever there is a bacterial attack, invasion, the host also starts to respond immediately. So this bacteria and host interaction is a very important thing. That's what we are going to tell about today. So within the second and 4 days, the after the plaque accumulation, the initial stage of gingivitis is already started. And in this, microscopically, you will see morphonuclear neutrophils. And in the patient's mouth, you will see slight vascular dilatation, that is slightly redness and bleeding. So next, after 4 to 7 days, comes under the category of early gingiva, early lesion. So in this, the cells are lymphocytes which accumulate into the area. So in the initial 2 to 4 days, you see a lot of neutrophils. In the 4 to 7 days, you see a lot of lymphocytes. And then slowly this becomes established within 14 to 21 days, wherein the new type of cells come, plasma cells invade the area. And then you have the advanced lesion, where the stage from gingivitis has crossed to the affecting the periodontal status, that is the bone is affected, and that is called advanced lesion. So the gingivitis is classified into initial, early, established, advanced, right from starting of day 2 after the plaque accumulation. Okay. And if this is treated, it reverts back to normalcy. If it's untreated, it heads towards periodontitis. So we can arrest the patient's progress in this initial, early, established before it heads into advanced. And if it untreated, it will head into the advanced state of periodontitis. Okay. Next. Yes. Now you see what now you see what is going on microscopically, and this you have to coordinate what you see in the patient's mouth. Now you come to the third year, you will be seeing patients. All this time, the first year and second year, you are reading theory. Now you will be seeing it all this in the patient's mouth, so you will able to understand the consequences of physiology and pathology. So as I told you, once the plaque with full of bacteria accumulate into the sulcus, the body host starts responding to this bacterial attack. So what happens microscopically is first increased vascular permeability and vasodilation. So the host is starting to act against this bacteria by having vasodilation and increased GCF flow. So this is the reason for bleeding on probing. Because of increased vascular permeability and vasodilation, there is bleeding on probing. So this is the first sign or symptom of a gingivitis case. Then as I told you, infiltration of neutrophils starts, then degeneration. Then next, after it crosses the epithelium, you know, has 4 layers: basal stratum, stratum basal, granulosum, spinosum, and corneum. Then after it crosses the epithelium, it reaches into the connective tissue. Connective tissue has, you know, fibroblast, collagen, blood vessels, mast cells, and various other blood components. So the disease has started to degenerate the fibroblasts. There is also collagen destruction. So from the normal, firm and resilient gingiva, now it becomes edematous, spongy. That's what you see in the patient's mouth. So when there is a edematous and spongy, that means the connective tissue fibroblasts are getting degraded and collagen is being lost. So I hope it's clear now. So you saw the bleeding on probing, spongy gums, and then next we'll see how it goes into the deeper tissue areas. So there is a proliferation of the junctional and sulcular epithelium apically. So this is how it is in apically. Yes. Okay. Next one. So these are very electron microscopic pictures of a disease state. As you can see in A, those retipex are lost, epithelial and connective tissue retipex. They are slowly losing their original form, and there is a dense infiltration of neutrophils in the number C and B and C, infiltration of neutrophils, and collagen bundles are getting disorganized. Collagen has a very organized state, so they are getting disorganized. So this is a microscopic structure of what is happening inside the connective tissue and epithelium. Okay, next. Yes, now as we go to the next stage, as I told you, established, that is after 14 days, what happens? 14 days of no treatment, what happens in the connective tissue? So there's an accumulation of inflammatory cells in the connective tissue. So inflammatory cells like lymphocytes, as I told you. So there's an immune response being elicited by the body. And second, there's an elevated release of MMPs. These MMPs and lysosomal contents from the neutrophils. MMPs are matrix metalloproteinases. So these are found in the connective tissue. They are normally found in the fibroblasts. Once they get elevated, they start destroying the collagen, and that results in very poor quality fibroblasts. So the third one, significant collagen depletion, and there's a proliferation of epithelium. Junctional epithelium starts proliferating inwards. Yes. Next. Yeah. So as the transition from initial gingivitis going into periodontitis, the inflammatory cells are infiltrated with plasma cells. Plasma cells. You know what plasma cells? Where there is innate immunity and acquired immunity. We'll be telling you in the subsequent slides. So infiltration of plasma cells, and T cells convert themselves to B cells. In the initial lesions, we saw the T cells. Now there is a more proliferation of B cells. Okay. And one more important point is the second one, the apical migration of junctional epithelium. The junctional epithelium starts to lose its hemidesmosomes and migrates apically. They start losing their contact with the tooth structure. And as a result of the continuous collagen breakdown, large amount of collagen depletion is seen in the connective tissue. And slowly, and it progresses into the next level, which is the bone, which stimulates the osteoclast and causes resorption of alveolar bone. So in this stages, there is a bacterial infiltration and attack, and also the body's host mechanism is playing a role. These two are interplaying, and once the host is compromised, then you get a lot of periodontal disease. Host response is compromised. That's why we say is the nowadays they are saying, due to the less of immunity, COVID cases are, the patients are dying because of lack of immunity. That means there is no immune response elicited by the body on the COVID virus. Here also the same thing takes place. If there is no proper response because of smoking or diabetes or any underlying comorbidities, this disease progresses to periodontitis. Okay, next. Yes, and also we have two types of pocket, supragingival and infrabony pocket. This pocket is the level of the sulcus, where if it's above the alveolar bone, it's called suprabony pocket. And when it goes below the alveolar bone, it's called as a infrabony periodontal pocket. Yes, next please. So we'll go to the second one, inflammatory responses in the periodontium, microbial virulence factors, host-derived inflammatory mediators, and role of specific inflammatory mediators in periodontal disease. Yes. Now, what is virulence factors? Now, these bacteria or viruses, they are armed with certain factors within them, where they elicit such a dangerous and harmful response on the host. For example, as you know, if you know the structure of the bacteria, it is having the flagella or fimbriae. This is for locomotion, to move to the site of in the host for its movement. So this flagella helps it to move, and the DNA inside it. DNA also has some enzymes which degrades the host epithelium, connective tissue, and bone. They have enzymes. So these are called virulence factors of the bacteria and host inflammatory processes. So this interplay, which you can see in the slide, it's continuous process which results in tissue damage. Next. Yeah, next. Next, please. Yeah. Now you can see the microbial virulence factors. Lipopolysaccharide. Lipopolysaccharide, on the cell wall of the bacteria, you have this lipopolysaccharide and bacterial enzymes, microbial fimbriae, as I was telling you. Fimbriae are the, on the cell surface of the bacteria, you have fimbriae, and these help in, as I tell you, in locomotion and attachment to the host cell, host response. So these are virulence factors. And host derived. Now, once the bacteria are attacking, the host in an inflammatory process elicits these following chemicals: cytokines, prostaglandins, MMP, chemokines, and anti-inflammatory cytokines. This is very little tough to understand. As the slides go by, I'll try to make it a bit easy. Yeah. So this comes from, yeah. So now linking pathogenesis to clinical signs of disease. Yes. Yes. Okay. So as I was telling you, the pathway of spread of inflammation from the epithelium to connective tissue is normally through the blood. It is spreads, the inflammation spreads to the underlying structures through the blood. And there are some mediators which help in this process. So the mediators are uh, the interleukin 1, tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 6, and natural killer cells. So we'll be dealing with each one of them as the slides go by. Yeah, next. Okay. Okay. So before I go, so we have read about the virulence factors of the bacteria and the how they elicit a response in the connective tissue by secreting matrix metalloproteins and also by eliciting cytokines. Cytokines, they are pro-inflammatory mediators. Common cytokines are interleukin 1, 6, and tumor necrosis factor, and also prostaglandins. So MMP, cytokines, prostaglandins. These elicit a inflammatory response. Prostaglandins, you must know that NSAIDs, you have heard of NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. They, how do they help in reducing inflammation? They interfere with the prostaglandin pathway through the cyclooxygenase and the lipoxygenase pathway. They inhibit this conversion of arachidonic acid to inflammatory mediators. So like brufen, you have heard of NSAIDs, brufen, mefenamic acid, they inhibit the prostaglandin synthesis. So now coming to resolution of inflammation. After the process of inflammation, there is a phase where there is a resolution of inflammation by lipid metabolites. One is lipoxin, second is resolvin and protectin. Now, you see when these appear, the appearance of these molecules signal the resolution of inflammation. That is the reduction of inflammation. Now, let us see how they reduce the inflammation. First, inhibit neutrophil infiltration. So as you must have read in pathology, the moment a bacterial attack takes place, the neutrophils migrate to the cell wall from the endothelial cells. They make their way through pseudopodia like behavior. They migrate out of the blood vessels. They migrate towards the bacteria, engulf in the process of diapedesis and transendothelial migration. So second, inhibit the production of pro-inflammatory mediators. Inhibit, what I was telling you, these resolvins and protectins, they inhibit the production of MMPs, cytokines, and prostaglandins. And they elicit a potent anti-inflammatory and immunoregulatory effects. Okay. Yes, let us see this one of the most important aspect, immune responses in periodontal pathogenesis, innate immunity, and adaptive immunity. Innate means what the body is already present with, like for example, skin, epithelium. These are all innate immunity. Adaptive immunity is once the antigen has taken its position, there is an antibody formation by the body. So this is called how adaptive immunity. Now let us see this in detail. Innate, it's a primary defense. It's for primary defense, and it's a fixed response, and the function is to recognize and recruit. So yeah, primary defense, fixed and immediate response, recognition and recruitment. Adaptive, it's a secondary defense mechanism. It's acquired. It's acquired slowly as once the antigen has made its way inside, slower, and it's antigen specificity. Antigen is the bacteria here. So once the bacteria attack, the body elicits an antibody response to this antigen attack. Okay, next. Yes, innate. As I told you, saliva, epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues are also called dendritic cells, gingival clavicular fluid, and pathogen recognition activation of cellular innate responses and neutrophil functions. These are all innate immunity. They come under innate immunity. And in adaptive immunity, antigen presenting cells, T cells, and antibodies. So always when the antigen is that the bacteria comes, there is a receptor on the bacteria and a receptor on the antibody cell. And this interaction causes their inflammation to reduce. Next. Yes. So apart from the normal cells, what we have seen in the connective tissue, there are also mast cells, lymphocytes, as I told you in the beginning, that is the T cell and a B cell, apart from neutrophils and macrophages. So all these act together to reduce the inflammation in either antibody mediated or cell mediated immunity. Yes, you can go back. And I think you must have heard of the cytokine storm in the COVID. You must have read that it causes a cytokine storm, and that's why they have to give steroids to the patients. So even here, there is a cytokine. This is the now you'll be able to understand what exactly this is. And inflammation is required by the body. Inflammation is a normal response by the body. But if it goes beyond a stage where it is creating a destruction to the body, that's when we have to intervene. Otherwise, it's a normal process. Only thing what happens in periodontitis, it elicits a very serious response causing tissue damage and bone loss. Right. Okay. Yeah. Next, concept of host susceptibility. Yes, this is when is the host susceptible? You know, some are hyper responsive, some are normal, some are hyper responsive. So this, a patient is diabetic, patient is a smoker, patient has cardiovascular problems, respiratory issues, bleeding disorders. They respond very slowly to the uh, repair, and that's why always have to check upon the systemic condition of the patient before treating. Yes. Yeah, that's why you see some patients going ahead because of the immunity is less. They go to a more serious state. Some come back to the normal state. Okay. In summary, these are a very comprehensive table, this one. So there is a microbial challenge, then there's a host response, and in this interplay, there is connective tissue and bone metabolism, and also this is surrounded by genetic factors and the environmental factors and the risk factors. What I told you, environmental and risk is like smoking, diabetes, and other systemic conditions. And there's an interplay of among all these, and that's why it ends up in bone destruction. So this table, if you write in your exam, it's more than enough when you get a question on anything to do with the pathogenesis of periodontitis. It's a very comprehensive table. Cytokines, prostaglandins, MMPs. Yes. Now, as I told you on the personal level, yes, on the personal level, smoking, diabetes, obesity, genetic level, some diseases are genetic, so you have to take into account in the cases. That's why the case history is so important. So where you ask the medical history, the present drugs which is taking, you check the BP and the sugar. So these are also important in your treatment. Okay. Yeah, Navneet, it's that. Next slide, please.
So these are just questions.
Okay. Do they take it down, or we'll give it to them later?
So we'll give it to them later on, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So this, any doubts in the current class, you can just type in, or you can WhatsApp or whatever. You can just send it across to the staff. We'll help you out. Or if you want to ask anything right now, it's fine.
Anybody has any doubt, they can ask right now.
Yes, it is. I understand it's a bit tough for you because you just landed in the third year. As you come to the clinics, when you see the patient, when you start doing the treatment, when you start prescribing drugs, mouthwashes, then you'll know the effect of what we are talking about. Basically, you have a normal gingiva. You have to know the normal epithelium, connective tissue, alveolar bone, constituents, and then correlate how they are looking in the mouth, in a normal patient's mouth, and in a diseased patient's mouth. Also, you have X-rays to check for the bone loss. So case history is very important. So once you take the case history, you come to a correct diagnosis and treatment plan. Okay. And I just want to tell you that today there was a bit of confusion. This class was supposed to be public health dentistry. So on Tuesday, 12:15 to 1:15, public health dentistry will be taking the class instead of perio. Namit, just note it, na?
Yes, sir, we've already informed them. There
Yeah.
is a
Okay.
switch. Yes, sir.
Okay. Will you just take a photo, this one, attendance, and forward
Yes,
it to
sir,
me?
I'll take it, sir.
Okay. Any questions? If you're, if you're feeling shy or something, don't worry. You can ask on the personal level also. I think most of them just reached home. Have you all just reached home?
Yes, sir.
Huh? Okay. Take care then. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Good day. Take care, all of you. Bye.